So hi everybody, my name is Nasha and I am the creator of Paper Doll Houses, and I have a very special guest with me today, and I'm just going to give you a quick discography on her. Her name is Janet Fitch. She is my actual childhood literary hero, so this is really big for me. Um, I know that I started reading White Oleander in high school, and I followed you from there. So I maybe I'll let you introduce yourself, and then you can kind of tell people who you are and what you're about, and yeah, and go from
Okay,
there.
well, my name is Janet Fitch, and I'm a writer. I'm from LA, and uh, my first book was a young adult novel that never kind of made it into consciousness. And my second novel was White Oleander, which was an Oprah book. And it's 20 years. It's this yesterday was its 20th anniversary. So this is 20 years since lightning struck. Writers never expect, we're good with failure. We're not so good with success. So
Yeah,
it was a big shocker and change, fabulous. I mean, it totally changed my life. So you never expect the success, failure hardens you and you get really good at keeping going and doing the thing you need to do. But it's like you push against a wall, you push against a wall, you push against a wall, and then suddenly the wall falls.
right.
And then that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
What do you do when the wall falls? So that was pretty interesting.
Okay.
And I've written 3 more books since then. I have a book about the aftermath of a suicide called Paint It Black,
Yeah.
which was also made into a movie by Amber Tamblyn, the actress.
Yeah.
It's her debut her directorial debut.
Yeah.
And then I have a book set during the Russian Revolution, a young poet coming of age during the Russian Revolution. And the second book, the conclusion of the story, comes out in July. So the first one is called The Revolution of Marina M, and the second one is called Chimes of a Lost Cathedral. And then that's where I've been for the last 12 years, is writing those 2 books.
Okay. Okay. So I remember I did ask you a question, I think once at a book reading that you had for the Revolution of Marina, and it was regarding each character from actually from Kicks, because I did read Kicks, and
Oh, you did. I'm so glad. You see, the Russian thing runs throughout.
I thought it was kind of it was awesome to watch your evolution from, your character from Kicks all the way up to Marina, and the differences in, in each young lady, each young woman. um and I remember I did ask you a question that I know some people who actually are really interested in your books. What is your difference, like your take on each character, and do you think they relate to a lot of women in today's society?
I think that the way women decide who they want to be and how to do, the people put themselves together, almost layers of experience.
Right.
Um, they start out thinking life is one thing and people tell them stuff, and they are always weighing, is what people are telling me, is that right? Does that make sense? Is that true? Uh, and then maybe that falls apart and they try something else. So women build themselves through experience.
Yes.
And each of my characters is very different in temperament.
Yeah.
Um, so the way they put themselves together is very different. I think that people have this, maybe in particular, when men have depicted women in fiction, they kind of think of young women as a certain thing.
Right.
Young women means something in particular. And I never really understood that until I had optioned Paint It Black, which has a punk rock princess as its heroine.
Yes.
And these 2 guys optioned that film before Amber Tamblyn did, and they wrote her saying stuff like, "Oh my God," it's like, excuse me, this girl is a very specific person.
Right.
It's not just some generic young woman.
Right.
And I think that in writing about young women, I like catching people as they're deciding who they are, as life is sometimes beating them up or giving them unexpected look at something that they didn't know about before.
Mm.
I like catching them at that moment. Although, maybe sometimes I do also write about older women in relation to younger women,
Right.
which is not always the smoothest path either. But I think that it's so important to, people were saying, well, young girls like this don't have that kind of thought. Those thoughts are way beyond what a young woman would have. But I think that people fail to understand how complex young women are, that they're not all the same, and they're not all thinking about shopping, and everybody has their deep concerns about life and trying to ask themselves the big questions: what's important, what's true, what are values worth living for, and what's not going to hold up in a pinch.
Right. Right. No, I totally, actually, I very, very much agree, because that's actually what my platform is for Paper Doll Houses, is we don't tend to rely on the ability to think that younger women might have the mind frame that they could be going through something, or they're trying to evolve to be a better woman, and then the people that are in their lives, they're not really, decent enough. I really, with White Oleander, I really related to that character a lot with Astrid, because of her inability to find herself through her mother, but her ability to find herself through all the various women in her life.
Right. And I think we do. I think we look to a number of women and go, wow, maybe that's what I want, maybe that's what I want, and you learn. And people, people tell you things, they show you things. And sometimes you know, you buy into it a little too much and you go, oh, wow, that
Yeah.
person has their own problems, that I didn't even notice because they were so glamorous,
It's true. And I know that with the ability to write, and you have, where you are in your life, do you ever deal with struggles that might seem like a hindrance, but you have the ability to pull yourself up from it eventually later? Do you ever deal with those things still, even to this day, even as successful as you become?
I think that you change over time. You find things, like for me, I've learned over time to move towards people who make me feel better about myself, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to be part of a group of people that maybe actually make me feel worse about myself. But for some reason, I had this idea that those were the cool people, or those were the people who knew where they were going or something, and I really needed to be around them. And the older I get, the more it's like, oh no, you spend time with people who make you happy, make you feel good, who really actually like you, help you out. And that's completely changed my life, so that my world is a much more nurturing world right now. I know people who actually care about me, who care for me. If I was sick, they'd bring me a bag of groceries, and even among the writers, I mean, I know a lot of writers now. I remember when I first sold White Oleander, was on tour, and people say, oh, do you know so-and-so? Do you know so? And it's like, well, where am I going to meet them? Bonds? But over time, you actually do meet all kinds of people that you've read, that you've heard about. And, some of them are really jerks. And some of them are really nice. And so it's like, instead of trying to be part of the cool kids, you look around, you go, oh, so-and-so's, that's a really nice person. That is a really cool person. That, and you can start picking and choosing more. when you're a kid, you're just stuck with the kids in the neighborhood, but as you get older, you start noticing who makes you feel good, who puts a smile on your face when you see them. And when you start leaving kind of some maybe insecurities behind and reach out to the people who put that smile on your face, it's like,
Right.
that's so simple. Why did it take me so long to figure that out? I don't know.
Right.
But it
Right.
sure did.
And that's a really good thing, though, especially to tell a lot of people that some people in your life are not good friends, and you have to make that decision for yourself to kind of put a toxicity.
That's right. How to keep them, when they're especially family members, it's very difficult,
Yeah.
because you want it to be better.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you learn how to back up and just, be more, I hate to say hypocritical, but you don't get into it with them. It's just you let them have their thing.
Yeah.
You definitely don't spend so much time with them that they start bringing you down.
By creating proper boundaries, kind of
Yeah.
like toxicity.
Yeah. Oh my God. The ability just to say, no, I can't. I'm afraid I can't.
Yeah. And you would be amazed that you still deal with something like that, even in the community where you're at now.
All your life. That's human beings, that's people. What are you going to do? Some people avoid being with people because they just can't maintain those boundaries. But if you can maintain them, then you can be more open and, let people in, this far, or this is a very nice person. This person comes in all the way, and this person is like, goodbye.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. That's the same journey I'm currently on myself to grow, for my children. Speaking of children, the one question I wanted to ask you is, I do know that during a certain time you were a single mom. So during that time, were you in the middle of writing a certain book, or how did that affect you with your writing type of?
Yeah, I'm always writing. I was writing when I had my baby. I was writing. I went to the first thing after I had my baby was to my writers group, and like my milk came in while I was reading my story. It was so I was very afraid to stop at any point, So that day I had a little baby swing with the D batteries. I'd put her in that swing and I'd turn on and she'd sleep for 45 minutes and I'd get that time. I became a single mom when my daughter was like 13. So she was a preteen or teen, just new teenager.
Yeah.
And that was wild because I had really depended more on my ex-husband for when we did things. He kind of he was very obstinate, very firm about, you ate at a certain time, you went to bed at a certain blah, 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 and when I was first single, we tended just to eat warmed over stuff from Trader Joe's or stuff like that, like that, pizza and stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed that my daughter just seemed kind of down. It's difficult to be in a divorce situation, but it seemed like we were scrounging around instead of really making a family. So I started really cooking dinner every night, but it was at 9:00. So she'd come home from school, she'd have a big snack because I couldn't get dinner on the table that fast, So I'd pick her up from school and she'd have a big snack and do her homework. And then by 9:00, we had a really nice sit down dinner. And it made it feel more like a family, even if it was just us.
Yeah.
She said she always appreciates that. She's 28 now. And she always remembered that we always had dinner, and appreciated that.
That's really good. That's really good. It's actually really a lot of hope for a lot of single moms out there that feel like they need to give up, even if they're in the streamline of a career that they're trying to focus on, or trying to, there's might have a pitfall, but they're still going. What I'm really interested in is, I know that you are a Russian history major, and that was your your biggest, you think, what made you go from becoming a Russian history major to a novelist?
I think I always unconsciously wanted to be a writer, but I had, when I was in fourth grade, I had a teacher who didn't like me very much, and I wanted her to like me, and I wrote this story, this short story about the diamond horse of mystery. And it was a really nice story, illustrated and all. And she took a red marker and just gave it a good going over and gave it back to me. And I didn't ever write again. It seemed like a really unsafe kind of thing to do. So I had a lot of fantasies going on, but I never wrote them down. And when I was in college, I went on a student exchange to England. And getting away from my school, I was super academic. I thought I was going to become an historian, go to graduate school, like really do that thing. And getting out of there and getting into a new environment, a lot of stimulation and foreign country and stuff. I woke up when I was 21, the night of my 21st birthday. I woke up bolt upright in the middle of the night and went, I'm going to be a novelist. I don't want to write history. I want to write fiction. And that was it for me.
And your writing is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Worst of moods, and I will reread every single book because it just.
Well, thank you. Well, I didn't start out as a very good writer. I started out by I'm somebody who needs to declare my intention first. It kind of clears space. Like, if you're going to know me, if you're going to date me, you better know that I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this. And if you are somebody who needs a lot of care and attention, maybe you need to find a different girlfriend, because I'm not that person. I'm going to be reading books and writing. And I needed to declare that I was going to be a writer before I'd ever written anything. And then I had to learn how to write. And so that took about 10 years to teach myself how to write. Got a lot of rejections. White Oleander was 20 years after I had started writing.
And that's amazing, because
takes a long time.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I did everything wrong. But I'm pretty stubborn. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care. I do care. I care a lot. But like my nickname in my family was Bulldog.
Okay. Because
it just when I'm going to do something, I can't let go. I just can't.
Right. I like that, because that's similar to very much how I am. Where if you don't mind me asking, where did you get the inspiration for? I know that I'll say with White Oleander, just to let you know, my daughter's middle name is Olivia because of Olivia Johnston.
Oh, Olivia.
I wanted to name her Astrid, and it just didn't get to happen. But where did you get the inspiration for, like I say, each character, but like your main characters that you really related to the heaviest?
Well, I think of your characters as, it's like in a dream where every character is you.
Okay.
So you take pieces of yourself and give them to different people. Okay. So if I took all of my vulnerability, I get Claire. Okay. If I take all of my artistic ego and just wanting to be left alone to do my thing, I get Ingrid. If I take, so you take pieces of yourself. I have that swap meet entrepreneur in myself too. I love a good swap meet, so that's Rena,
Yeah.
And then some of the characters were just, they were um, just created people I imagine really clearly. But the major characters are generally pieces of yourself that you put in opposition to each other to see what happens. You know, Astrid, usually the main character, like in Astrid was the last, usually the protagonist is the last one you get because they're your camera.
Right.
So they're looking at everybody else. And then it's like, well, who is your protagonist?
Okay.
That takes longer.
Growing up through each character.
In Painted Black, there are 3 characters. And I'm actually more Michael than I am Josie. Josie is a punk princess. She's pretty happy with her life.
Yeah.
She's an art model and just having a great time.
Yeah.
She was more my mother, who grew up in LA, but really poor and really, kind of, she made me very aware of issues of class issues.
Okay.
And so that was a lot of that book was about my mom, like the idea, like Josie is surprised that Michael can get the cigarettes that he likes at the local bodega just by asking. It's like, you can just ask. It never would occur to Josie she would just accept whatever things as they were. It would never occur to her to ask for things that weren't there. And my mother, kind of opened a lot of that stuff up for me, growing up with her. Okay. So I'm more Michael than although I did, come of, age as a writer during the punk era. So the whole punk thing makes a lot of sense to me. And then Marina she was like an avatar of the revolution. I like characters who are a bridge between worlds because they have a lot of inner conflict.
Yeah.
And Marina being somebody from an intelligentsia family, but being pro-revolution.
Right.
A lot of conflict, internal conflict as well as external conflict. So I knew she'd be a good protagonist.
Yeah.
To bring us through that.
She was interesting to watch how she evolved from not knowing to getting into the know because of her friend, and then questioning everything past that. And
those 3 girls, it's like they're pieces of me.
Yeah.
3 aspects of myself. They're also the 3 brothers Karamazov, the passionate Dmitri, who's the protagonist of the brothers Karamazov. So Marina is, the passionate one. Varvara is the real intellectual and kind of a savagely political, person, but very intellectual, kind of a cold intellect. So she's Ivan Karamazov. Okay. And then Mina is the sort of family girl, a bit of a sweetie pie, which is not the way she ends up, but it's the way she starts out. And so she's a bit of the saintly brother, but that doesn't last long because eventually they become themselves, and it goes the way it goes.
Yeah, right. No, that's interesting because I also relate a lot of your books with a lot of character issues with our kind of like with our nowadays with like mental issues and different stuff like that, especially with Astrid with her seeking validation, or Josie with the pain that she went through. Actually, it was interesting. I do recommend your books quite a bit to people, even though they are fiction. I'm like, if you need to understand something from a viewpoint of a woman, I think this is the best book for you, and I will recommend your book quite often.
Thank you so much. No. Yeah, Marina was the first time I've ever had a character who was very self-confident.
Yeah.
Never had a self-confident character before.
Right.
And, I'm not all that self-confidence. So it was amazing to have somebody who, she's such a fiery character.
Right.
And it's been amazing having her and pulling that part of, because I guess I have a part of myself that's like that, but I don't think about it that much. So it was very interesting being her for 12 years.
You seem to write from a perspective like you understood where she was coming from, because she was self-evolving throughout the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of seemed like you were writing from that perspective. That's why I said it's really interesting to watch each character grow, because it's almost like watching you grow through each character.
Isn't that interesting? What a good observation. It is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I enjoy seeing about each one. And Marina scared me, actually, because she's really confident, and I understand your fear of her.
And they have their own problems. Really confident people have their own problems because they do things that I wouldn't do in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially Laura's character. I don't think I could ever be like her, because she's something else.
Yeah, she is. Actually, she is based on somebody I knew that I was in high school with.
She reminds me of a friend of mine. That's why I say quite often to her. She'll read the book one day. I did read something that you said as a child that if you had to choose a superpower, it would be invisibility. Is there a reason for that specific?
Oh, because then I could see what everybody was really like. I could see. I just had this so strong feeling of the mystery of other people. God, I just wanted to know what they were really like when nobody was watching them.
Yeah.
I'd go by houses and I would see the lights inside their houses, and just, God, I just wish I could go in there and just watch. There was a TV show called The Wild Wild West. It was sort of a steampunk Western when I was growing up. And one of the things that one of the episodes, I forget what kind of a machine it was, but the evil villain had a machine that could stop time, or people would move really slowly, and then the heroes could walk around and see what they were all doing. And I just love that, to be able to, people are such mysteries.
Yeah.
So the invisibility thing was just a way of penetrating that. And I guess that's what writing does, is it lets me imagine my way behind those walls and imagine what people are really doing.
You said a little earlier that you were a lot like Michael's character from Painted Black, and I know that you wrote from a male perspective, which was really interesting, because I know that coming from a woman, writing from a female perspective is pretty easy, but writing from a male perspective, do you think it's more difficult, or do you think you could ever see yourself writing an actual full feature novel from a male perspective?
I think that while gender has, there are aspects of gender that make things a little bit more difficult, I think the personality is more important than the gender.
Okay.
I think that an anxious person, a shy person, a confident person, an athletic person, an optimistic person, that the scent of the personality is far more important. And, so that could be a man or a woman, doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, certain things I think are I've had some interesting reading from people who are transgender, especially early on. I mean, and now there's so many more people who could tell us, how was it to be a man? How is it to be a woman? Right. How is it to be a man? How was it to be a woman? One of the interesting things that they interviewed Christine Jorgensen, who was one of the very early transgender. She was I believe she was a tennis player.
Okay.
And they asked her, what's the difference between being a man and being a woman? And she said that as a woman, she can't ignore other people's needs the way she could. There was something about testosterone.
Okay.
That enables you to feel a little less the force of other people's needs around you. I know that people are trying for gender parity, and I think that's a really good cause, because a lot of it is just, oh, I can't possibly do this, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But there was a woman who was interviewed in Lear's magazine, which had been it was Norman Lear's wife started a magazine back in the 90s, maybe. Fascinating magazine. And they interviewed, there was an article by a woman who was taking testosterone for some kind of medical condition. And she decided to push a little bit, take a little more, and to see what it was like to be a man.
Okay.
And it was very interesting. She gave tours of like house and garden tours. That's what she did for a living. And she said suddenly she started losing business because she just wasn't as charming as a man. She didn't have as good a feel for how she was going over with people, what their reactions to her were. She said she started like losing clientele because she just didn't care as much what people thought.
Right.
And evidently there is some hormonal basis for male versus female, kind of a broad sense, reaction to people's emotional needs. So that was very interesting. So that helped me maybe a little bit understand perhaps the difference. Michael was extremely sensitive, and there are men who are extremely sensitive. Yeah. So if you want to write a male character, it's like young women. There isn't a type. There's no type that's a man.
Yeah.
Any more than there is a woman.
Yeah.
So I can picture very clearly what, certain kinds of guys would be anyway.
Okay. I did write a bunch of notes. I'm actually kind of excited to know that one of your favorite authors is Edgar Allan Poe, because he's actually one of my favorite. I was wondering what authors inspired you to write so eloquently like the way that you do now.
Well, for me, I started with Poe. I kind of like a lyrical long sentence kind of writing. So I would say I started with Poe, totally addicted to that. My brother used to read me Poe when I was a little kid and scare me to death, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And I loved Dickens, Poe, Dostoevsky, and then the American Gothic, so Faulkner and Joyce Carol Oates. Okay. Long sentence, kind of creepy, it's a direct line from Poe. It's a direct line.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky loved Poe and Dickens, so that's where he comes in. I also read a lot of Anais Nin, so what a woman's eternal life being extremely important. Not just an also ran hold my sweater kind of thing, but the main event is the internal world. I really like Lawrence Durrell, who was a colleague of Nin's. So he writes the long line, that lyrical sentence, just beautiful, observant writing, the Alexandria Quartet. I love Malcolm Lowry, very imagistic, the repetition of metaphors and building of the story that way. Okay. Under the Volcano. And then my teacher, Kate Braverman, was a poet before she was a novelist. So she had the poetry in her writing. And I was writing, but I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, and I didn't know what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I got a rejection from the Santa Monica Review
Okay.
that said, good enough story, but what's unique about your sentences? Yeah, and I'm going like, huh? What do you want me to start everything with the letter B? You want me to put the nouns at the end? I mean, what do you mean? I just couldn't understand what the heck he was talking about, but it was like having a splinter. It's like I knew there was something there. And so I just kept picking at it. It's like, what does he talking? And then I realized finally, after about 6 weeks, it's that there was something more that needed to be done with the writing. The story wasn't enough. The characters weren't enough. That you actually have to write a beautiful sentence with a sound to it. And then I started working with Kate Braverman, who didn't care about story at all. She could have cared less. She just cared about the words, the sound of it, the beautiful, a great metaphor, the poetics.
Yeah.
And once I started working with her, then my writing changed. It just blew the whole thing open.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question. I think I've been wanting to ask you a question since I ever read White Oleander. And I know that this is probably going to sound really fangirlish in a way, but every Mother's Day I post the same exact paragraph from your book. And it's when I think the newborn was in the hospital and she was crying out for the ultimate mother. And I think I broke that down, that this is, how I depict being a mother is actually from that part of the book.
Wow.
And
wow,
where you got that from, but I think I've always wanted to tell you that. And that's...
Thank you. Well, I just remember having my baby and wishing, my mother went on a business trip when I had my baby, and just wanting somebody like really big, and could just take this all away. And of course I didn't have that person.
Yeah, I understand that completely, actually. And I do know that you probably do know with the downfall of a lot of the mental health with our young women nowadays. What would you give? I know that you're probably still going through your own things as well, but you have come very, very far and you have greatly. And I think we all are going to probably evolve and probably all have some issues, inner issues, and then working. But what is your opinion about with our younger ladies and their views on kind of like the like the Bad Girls Club and different stuff that's out there that our young ladies are kind of imitating? What would you say to them, our younger generation? I cannot form that question.
Well, I think that, what people, I think about younger people thinking that life is about getting rid of the struggle rather than realizing the struggle is life. Yeah. You have these ups and downs. Certainly get help, get therapy, awesome, as much as you can. You get people who be around people who support you emotionally. Yeah. But that, you're going to have ups and downs, and there's nothing shameful about it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. It's not like there's something wrong with me. I'm depressed. There's something wrong with me. I'm sad. No, you're a human being. And we play the whole piano, 88 keys. You got the whole thing. And if you find yourself playing the same 3 keys, get some help. Yeah. But we have to play the whole rich piano because that's what we've got. If there's not enough joy in your life, then you got to go make sure there's enough of that, and there's enough deep thought, and there's enough friendship, and there's enough time alone to think, and take a breath. And sometimes it's a dance. Sometimes you don't get all these things at once. Like you have tiny children. The time to think and be deep and wide is, you might have to, architecture that in little slivers sometimes. But it's all necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Because a lot of people feel bad about feeling bad.
yeah.
It's like just that you can get rid of that part.
Yeah.
You're a human being, and our purpose of life here is to be more deeply human.
Yeah.
So to reject some part of yourself that's suffering, no, honor that.
Yeah.
Honor the struggle, honor the suffering, that
It's
it's,
embrace the darkness. Yeah.
That's what gives you dignity.
It's true. Helps you work through all the kinks and the ability to say,
right. And it gives you a bottom note. It's like good music, you need the bass.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree highly. I don't even really know if there's much more to ask you. Do you have any questions for me? I know that's not really.
Yeah. So are you writing?
I am currently. I had started and then I stopped, and then I started and stopped. I'm a huge fan of fiction as well.
Uh-huh.
I was writing a couple of sci-fi novels. One, and then I was also writing a novel based off of me. But it was her. Her name was Delilah. She was like a hardcore lost princess who was going to change everything. So I haven't worked on it in so long.
Yeah, my advice to writers is that nobody writes a novel. You write a scene, just a scene that you can see. Whatever, it doesn't have to be in order. Just anywhere in the book. So anything you see really clearly, write that scene, throw it in a box.
Okay.
Write another scene, throw it in the box. You don't have to even figure out how they fit together. Just anything you can see clearly, just write that.
I never saw
and then worry about how it all fits together later.
Yeah, I think I'm always trying to put things in order right.
Right. And then you're writing a lot of stuff that you're not even interested in.
Yeah.
Just write the interesting parts and then you can figure the rest out. That's how I did White Oleander. It's just whatever I could see really clearly, I wrote that. Okay. Like I wrote the first 3 chapters were a short story.
Okay.
And then when I had to figure out what I was going to do afterwards, that wasn't the next chapter.
Right.
I wrote, the next thing I saw was when I figured out that she was going into foster care. The first thing I saw was her dyeing Marvel Turlock's hair. Because I used to dye my mother's hair. It was gross. I had to do that, every few months.
To cover up the...
Yeah. I had to dye her hair. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be horrible to have to do this for a stranger? Kind of leaning over her in a bathroom in a really closed space. Very intimate thing.
Yeah.
So that was the next thing I saw very clearly. And then I saw Marvel Turlock, the foster home that you don't want to be in.
Yeah. I do like the fact that you make Olivia her Christian.
Yeah. So, I think in general, people who want to start writing should write short stories instead of novels, because you can take risks in short stories. It's more like dating than getting married. You can date the wrong guys for a while. You can write stories, and if they don't turn out well, what have you lost? A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And then you can see if a story has more energy after you've written, several stories. One of them might have a little more energy to it. And it's like, wow, maybe that story wants to be bigger. So I'm a big fan. I'm not necessarily a good short story writer, but I really think it's important to use it as a laboratory.
Okay.
So you don't end up halfway through a novel and going, I just don't feel it anymore. I don't know where to go. I don't know what this is.
Right. Okay. That's really actually great advice for me and other people out there that are trying to work on it.
Or you could take pieces of the novel that's kind of becalmed and see if you can craft a short story out of a chapter of it.
Okay. I like that though. I really do. I'm not too well with that. Like I said, I'll start a story, and then I have so many unfinished started projects that
Right. So if you can think of finishing them as short pieces,
I was thinking.
then you'll have finished pieces.
Right. Yeah. And I can get progressing forward from there.
Right.
I think I'm pretty much
To the end.
at this point. Yes.
Well, thank you. I'm glad this worked out.
Thank you. Thank you for actually agreeing to an interview with me, especially because I know that your voice will reach a lot of young women and even older women who not just look up to you, but even if they don't know you, now they have an ability to get to know you. And
Cool.
that's awesome. And your story alone is going to help out somebody who might feel like
They're the only ones. You're not the only one. There, that is the human truth. Is we're all in the pot.
yeah, yeah. And it's totally fine. And like you said, with the proper help, that's actually what my platform is about. It's kind of like free therapy in a way. Only reason why it's more exposed to the world is because there's so many pain kind of going out there based off of everyone's over controlled ego. So I know that a lot of women, that we're the cradle of civilization, and we make and create life, and what we do kind of affects our future generations. So
Yes.
yeah, I do thank you for that. And if like I said, if, her books are called White Oleander, Painted Black, and The Revolution of Marina M. And I know that the new book, which I have not bought yet, which I need to go do. What was the name of your new novel?
It's called Chimes of a Lost Cathedral. So it's the second part of that, of the revolution.
Okay, so the Chimes of the Cathedral. I don't know if there's anything else you might want to say.
That'll do it. So thank you for watching, and thanks for having me. And have a good evening.
You too.